Hi. Okay, so I just got back from watching Captain America Brave New World, and I needed to talk about it immediately. Um, I want to preface this with I have been very excited for a Sam Wilson Captain America movie. I really loved Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I was excited for his first outing. That said, I had absolutely zero faith that Disney and Marvel could actually write a story for him that was good. Um, that said, with the Guardians of the Galaxy aside, because that is the best MCU trilogy by miles and miles and miles, of the big three, the best trilogy is Captain America by miles and miles and miles. It goes Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain America, and then Thor and Iron Man are somewhere in the depths of hell. So the bar for a Captain America movie is already relatively high. And I hate to say that Brave New World did not live up to the standard that is Captain America movies. Now, I'm not crazy. I don't think Captain America movies are like cinematic brilliance or anything, but they are, all three of them are upper echelon Marvel movies. And the same cannot be said for this. Now, let's get into that. The good news of the film is that it's not nearly as bad as the internet seems to think it is. Um, I suppose I could pull up actual things. There we go. It has, now the internet has been giving really mixed reviews, like super diehard Marvel heads love it, and people who have just decided that they hate Marvel hated it. So, I don't really trust the general public's opinion on movies in general, but definitely not Marvel movies. It's got a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics, but an 80% for the audience score, and that's always going to be more important. Let's get to the problems here. Okay, now, contextually, I understand that it is hard to get into a universe that has been going this long and has prided itself on being an interconnected, multiversal juggernaut. It's hard to just kind of slip into that. There's difficult entrance. It's difficult to find an entrance point if you haven't been here for the last 20 years. That said, most of the films do a really good job of giving you any context that you need for the film in the film. And this is one of them. It gives you everything you need to know about the Hulk, the Eternals, Falcon, and the Winter Soldier in the movie. It does not assume knowledge. The problem lies in the fact that it built its entire plot around the one Marvel movie no one gives a fuck about. The 2008 Hulk movie that's barely considered an MCU movie because the MCU has not treated it as canon or even acknowledged it in the last, again, nearly 20 years. That came out in 2008. It's 2025. So what, 17 years? It's been almost 20 years since that movie came out. Nobody cared about it when it did come out. Nobody has cared about it since. So choosing that as the bedrock to build your story off of is a bold decision. It's a dumbass decision, but it's a bold decision. Um, and my main problem with that is that the writing relied too heavily on the context of that movie. Again, it doesn't assume knowledge. It explains things to you in a super expositional way, which I appreciate. But it was too much tied to that movie. Just so we all know, The Incredible Hulk from 2008 has a 68% Rotten Tomatoes from the critics and 69 from the audience. So nobody has ever given a fuck about this film. It's not a good movie. And again, it has not been relevant to the MCU as a whole. So the main villain, the immersion of the Red Hulk, and repeatedly mentioning Hulk and Abomination. Why? Why did we choose to do that? Especially considering the fact that we've seen the Abomination in the MCU before, and the Hulk, and we've talked about the original Hulk again when we saw the Abomination. So this just feels really delayed, and it feels really, really disconnected from the current state of the MCU, and it feels really, really disconnected from the state of Sam Wilson and where he's at, and why the fuck would he be connected to this story? It doesn't make any foundational sense, and that is the core of the problem with the movie. Besides that, if you're willing to overlook the entire plot of the film, Anthony Mackie is such an incredible Sam Wilson, and as expected, he is an extremely charismatic and wonderful Captain America. I love that his Captain America is so distinct. It is so very different from Steve Rogers and Chris Evans' Captain America. And it's not just different because he's black. And he has that, weight over him. But it's different because he's not a super soldier. He didn't take the serum. So he has to use his main power, which is counseling. It's talking. It's his heart. Captain America has to use diplomacy and words in order to diffuse situations. And that doesn't mean he can't fight. The man has worked his ass off. He trains with Isaiah Bradley, which is a great way to shut up the fuckers that are like, oh, he didn't take this super soldier serum. He's not strong enough. He can't possibly do it. Blah, 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 blah. They have a whole scene that firmly establishes that he's been training with a super soldier to learn ways to not have to use brute force and technology, to learn other combat techniques, to be in the best fighting shape he can possibly be in a way that doesn't require him to use the same skills as Steve, because he doesn't have the same skills as Steve. But Steve, yes, he was Captain America, but he isn't the only Captain America. The thing that I struggle with when interacting with people on the internet is that I want to punch them all in the throat, because Captain America is not a person, it is a title. It is a mantle. It is specifically what we call in comics a legacy title, or a legacy hero. The mantle gets passed, okay? Sam is not the only other Captain America. Bucky was Captain America. And I'm willing to bet that if Steve had passed the shield to Bucky, we wouldn't be dealing with the same amount of negativity towards Bucky that Sam and Anthony Mackie have been getting. Guarantee it. Because it's not coming from not wanting Steve Rogers, or not wanting anybody but Steve Rogers to have the mantle. We all know where it's coming from. But Sam Wilson was made Captain America in the comics 10 years ago. You've had a decade to get the fuck over it. And if you haven't done that by now, then these movies aren't fucking for you. They never were, actually. But Sam's main power is his heart, and that really hammers home why he was chosen as Captain America. Now, spoiler alert, the movie ends with a very, why can't we just all get along message, and that seems a little yucky, and quite frankly, really out of character. But, again, a film made by a major corporation, I think a lot of the internet is expecting too much from a Marvel movie. I saw a lot of, there's a lot of political stuff going on right now. Why doesn't the new Captain America movie tackle it? Blah, blah, blah. Well, number one, it's a movie, which means it was done months ago. So how could it possibly be tackling what's happening right this second? Fundamental misunderstanding of how the film industry works. Yes, they were doing reshoots in November, but the shit was wrapped up. And reshoots does not mean rewriting the plot or reshooting big major things. The reshoots they were doing in November were so minimal. Y'all need to If you don't understand how the film industry works, just shut the fuck up. Okay? No opinions. Because you sound stupid. And then we have the side of the internet that just desperately wants it to be a political thriller in a way that Marvel is just never going to do. It's not capable of it. It kind of did it in The Winter Soldier, but the kind of political thriller and political commentary that people are expecting from the MCU, this is a you problem. And I talk about this a lot when we talk about the people who are like, oh, movies suck nowadays. No, they don't. You suck. A movie is not bad because you placed unrealistic expectations on it and then it failed to meet those expectations. I'm going to say that again. A movie is not bad because you placed unrealistic expectations on it and it didn't live up to those expectations. Okay? The movie's fine. It's a Marvel movie. It's gonna do what it does. Kicky kicky, punchy punchy, some cool fight scenes, some quippy dialogue. Why are you expecting more from it? At this point in time, we're at like 30 Marvel movies. Why do you think that there's going to be a sudden political and social commentary shift in one of the biggest franchises in the world? Look, if that's what you want, that's fine, but you're not going to find it here. And you knew that, so go somewhere else. Again, these movies aren't for you. In fact, if that's what you want, go read some fucking comic books. You can read Marvel comics if you want. But you're not going to find it in the MCU, and you were never going to. I think the fight scenes were good. I think Mackie was given some really great fight choreography in and out of the suit, with and without the wings, that really showed his strength and ability as Captain America outside of his technology and what I would call brute force. And I love that. I think that was a really important highlight of the film. Now, obviously, the highlight of the movie was Anthony Mackie. He really was incredible, and he carried the film. But we got to talk about Harrison Ford. He was also awesome. I feel like, I was going to say the last few years, but really this man's whole ass career, I feel like he's accidentally an actor. Like, he doesn't actually care about that many of the roles he's played. He loves Indy. He cares very much about Indy. He could not give less of a fuck about Han Solo. But you can tell when he's really phoning in his performances. But he went really hard with Ross, and I think if he had had the role from the jump, we would all have been better off. He's the third Thaddeus Ross now, I think. But at least the jump of the actual MCU, he was so good, and I think he was the other highlight. And him and Mackie played off of each other really, really well. And I love seeing them share the screen together. That was great. Now, my biggest gripe with the film may not seem like a big deal, but it was deeply emotional for me, and I feel very strongly about it. At the beginning of the first act, and they're trying to retrieve a package, and Mackie flies in, and they're all calling him Cap. All the soldiers are calling him Cap. Love it. Great. Awesome. You know what should have been playing right there? Some really iconic theme music that everybody knows, that everyone attributes to the Avengers, but is titled Captain America's theme, and has played in every major Captain America moment in the MCU. And this film made the choice to not play that theme for Sam ever. It's actually making me so mad I'm gonna cry. He never got Cap's theme music. And what that tells me and the audience is that even Marvel doesn't believe that Sam Wilson and Anthony Mackie is Captain America. And though that's not surprising, it is super disappointing. And it just sucks. He deserves better than that. He is Captain America. This was a Captain America movie. You didn't play Captain America's theme. And it was his first real outing as Captain America. He deserves to have that music played for him. And they didn't put it in the movie at all. What the fuck, guys? And you can't give me a good reason why it didn't play. There is no good reason. That was my biggest disappointment with the film. It may have been really subtle, and some people may not have noticed, but I noticed immediately, and it's all I thought about the rest of the movie. It, it, it was really very disappointing to me. Um, Overall, I think it's a mid-tier Marvel movie. 6 out of 10 at best. I would absolutely rewatch it before I rewatch a lot of the other movies. And though the core plot was definitely a weird choice, it doesn't really kill the movie. It just leaves you asking, why did we choose to do this specifically? And it only really bothers me because there were about 1,000 better ways to tell this story. It just really felt like the writers hadn't kept up with the MCU since 2008 and then just decided to write what they knew, but what they knew hasn't been relevant for nearly 2 decades. And this comes from, I don't know if I brought this up yet, 5 screenwriters on this, guys. 5. You cannot find a good, mediocre, or great movie that was written by 5 people. 2, 3 max. But 5 people on the screenwriters team is crazy. And that's how you get a disjointed, incoherent script, which is what we got. 5 people in the writer's room for a feature film is insane. For a TV show, that makes sense. This isn't a fucking TV show. This is a feature film. There was 0 reason to have 5 writers in that room. That's insane. Anyway, batshit crazy. Hated it. Hated that part of it. 6 out of 10. I hope they do better with Mackie's next outing because he deserves better.